Alright, so many times when you are trading in goods or even manufacturing goods, you might have the need to maintain batch numbers in the transactions and also have batch numbers in the inventory that you are holding for the items. So some of the items might not require batch numbers, but for the items that require batch number details to be kept, we'll see how we can do that in the system. So if I go to the item master, and if I look at my items, so I can see there is an option for batch numbers, but it's disabled right now. The reason is that any item which has an inventory balance will not allow you to change the management method. So if you have to manage batch numbers, you have to enable this option when there is no inventory in the system. So typically you do this when you are starting transactions for a new item, or at one particular time when you don't have any inventory, and then going forward you want to manage the batch numbers for this item. So what we are going to do is take a new item. So this is a new item I've just created, and this is Kids Nova Fashion Plus, and I have set the item controlled by property to batch numbers. Now when we are choosing this property that we want the batch numbers to be required during transactions, we have another option wherein we can specify whether the system should ask for batch numbers in all the transactions or only on deliveries and issues, which means sometimes what you want to do is capture the batch numbers only when the goods are going out of your company. So if you are delivering, which means you are invoicing or making a delivery challan, that's only when you want to maintain the batch numbers, typically from warranty purposes, right? But otherwise in your inventory you are not managing batch numbers. And in issues means consumption. If you are issuing these items for internal consumption, then also you want to track the batch numbers for the items you have issued. So right now I'm going to set it for all transactions, and I'm going to update it. Now this is all we need to do as far as the setup is concerned for batch numbers. So now if at this particular point of time, if I try to do any transaction, the system will ask me for batch numbers. Now before we start selling this, we obviously need to have a stock of this item. So let's start by purchasing this item, and in order to do that we'll need a vendor. So what we'll do is we'll go to our business partner screen and create a vendor quickly for us, and let's say we are purchasing these bikes from our manufacturing partner called Mohan Automobiles. So I'm going to give this BPA code of M Auto. Not created any groups, I'm just going to add. So I've just created a vendor for me. I'm not going to enter the address and other details because I don't need it right now. So I'll go to the purchase invoice screen, and here I'll try to, okay, so the document numbering is not set for purchase invoicing, so I'll do that first. So I'll go to configuration, document series, AP invoice, and I'll create a series for purchase transactions starting from number 1. There was no last number, next number is going to be 1. There is no limits or no ending number, and this is going to be a default. Okay, so I'll go back to purchase invoice screen again. I have my number 1 ready, so I'll choose the vendor, and I also want to set this grid for myself. So what I will do is, I don't want these columns, so I'll remove them. The width of this column, and decrease some of them. Alright, and if I choose my cycle and I put in a price of, let's say, 1650, and I'm placing them in Delhi warehouse, and let's say I have tax applicable at 18%, and my quantity is 10 pieces. So this is the basic details of what I'm purchasing. Now if I try to add this purchase right now, I'll get a message saying incomplete batch details, right? So what I'll have to do is, for this item, I'll have to click batch details, and I'm required to put in a batch for this 10 quantity. So I can either fetch existing batches and use the same batch code for increasing the quantity of those batches. Otherwise, I can put in a fresh batch number, whatever the case may be. So let's say the batch number is C2019-02, and the quantity 10 belongs to this batch. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to press add. Now this is when it saves the transaction and records the batch number in my inventory for these 10 quantities. So if I go to my item, I can see that for this Delhi warehouse I have this batch code, and the balance quantity in this batch number is 10. Right now, this particular area where you can see the batch numbers right now does not show you all the batch numbers. It only shows you a sampler of what kind of inventory you are holding. Typically, if you want to review what are the different batches with different balance quantities in your warehouses, you would want to go to the reports and view them, right? So now that we have purchased these items with the respective batch numbers, we can use them in selling. So it's very similar. We just go to our invoices, we choose the customer whom we are selling to, we choose the item we are selling, and let's say I'm selling 2 of these cycles from my daily warehouse, obviously at the price of, let's say, 2,000 bucks, and I also have this 18% tax code applicable. So this is all that I want to capture, except that the address is there. So I'm ready to invoice. Now if I try to add this right now, again it asks me for the batch numbers. So I'll go to the batch details. Now here, since we are selling, we actually need to choose one of the batches that exist in our inventory. So I can either type in directly, or I can say fetch existing batches, and I can say use one of these batches in the transaction. So in this, I'm going to sell 2 quantity from this batch number, and I'm going to add this invoice. So now once I've done this, then I can obviously use these batch numbers to print in my invoice, and obviously I'll have to get my invoice format customized if I want to do that, right? And I can also view the batch details later on in my transactions, so I can see what are the different batch numbers I have entered in the transactions earlier. So this is more or less how you can invoice using batch numbers, and keep a record of the batch numbers and use them for printing along with your invoices in a separate page or on the same invoice page, depending upon your business needs, and cater to your business requirements.